Yo, I'm glad you like the song. Let's see, how'd it go? Like, don't you ever stop and think sometimes? Could have been us, could have been wonderful, yes, or yes. Found a new love in your life. Could have been us, could have been wonderful, yes, or yes. Something about it don't sit right. Could have been us, could have been wonderful, wonderful, yes. Something like that.
Hello, 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 guys. Oh, you listen. This is going to be one conversation that you do not want to miss. Whatever you're doing, you need to come and hear this. Uh, I guess that I looked forward to having this conversation with you, Don, and I'm so glad that I could have you here. However, impromptu, it was all just a quick, okay, let's do it, let's do it. So yes, I'm glad to have you here. How you doing today, Don?
Yeah, it's good to be here too. It's been a pretty good day so far.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's cold, isn't it?
Yes, it's pretty cold, but that's what we expect this time of year.
That's true. That's true. This time of the year, you expect it to be cold. Yes. So yes. Right, Don. I before we start with the conversation, just to tell you a little bit about myself and why I have this space here that I have these kind of conversations. So I came away from religion about 3.5 years ago, nearly 4 years now. I didn't know no other way to be but to be a Christian. I didn't know that you could choose, that there was such a thing as one who didn't have a God belief. I I grew up believing that having a God belief was something that everyone had, but just some had the right God and some had the wrong God. But everyone had a God belief. Didn't know that there was any such thing as being an atheist, atheism, or being agnostic, or being, no, I didn't know there was anything of that sort. And so when I started questioning, well, before then, I was in the Church of England. I was making my way to becoming a priest in the Church of England. I'd finished the one year course. I'd done the second year, Pathways to Ministry. My path was set. But the more we studied, the more we went in depth with the with the um with the origins of Christianity, the more a lot of things started to not make sense. One example, one of the things that didn't make sense was a lot of assumptions were made about the authors of the book and what their agendas were. And that to me, I couldn't understand what was going on, right? How some of the things that, for example, oh, we assume that John wrote the book of Revelation. Hang on, you're the Church of England, and you're assuming that John wrote the book of Revelation. If you are making assumptions, then why are you telling people that this is in fact real? And so it turns out that a lot of things just weren't quite accurate, weren't quite factual. And so slowly, slowly, it just fell apart. I was angry. I was angry because why did they lie to us? Why did they get us to give our lives to this Jesus character when nobody even knows what they're talking about? And so I started on the journey of trying to expose the falsehood, expose the lies, expose the things that are hidden that they don't tell everyone, right? So that's just a little history of myself and why I have this platform. It's a sort of like an awareness kind of thing. There are lots of people like myself, Don, who have no clue at all what it is to be an atheist, what it is to not have a God belief. I've been told that you cannot be an African and be an atheist, that it is impossible, that the God belief is intrinsic to the African mind. So I have been told. And so when I met you, um, you've been an atheist. Well, okay, don't let me start. So that's just a little bit about myself, right? So tell us a little bit about yourself, Don.
Yes, okay. That's very interesting to hear about some of your history there. I think it's true that biblical scholarship and scholarship of the early days of Christianity is in itself enough to cure people of belief if they look at it clearly. But of course, that evidence is in addition to all the evidence that science has produced over the last 300 years, which have undermined many of the claims of religion. But my own position is not so dramatic. Uh, I grew up in a broadly Christian household. No one said anything about disbelieving. And I think it was as I read things and understood things during my teenage years, I began to realize that this couldn't be true.
Hmm.
But that's a very long time ago, as you can probably tell. Um, but so I've been a non-believer for many decades.
Wow, you've been a non-believer longer than the number of years I have been on this earth.
Maybe true. Yes,
Oh, it is true. I'm in my 40s. Well, early
yes,
the early side of the 40s, but very soon I will soon hit the midway point of the 40s. So yes, I think you've been an atheist longer than uh
yes. Maybe that's true. Yes, it's terrible how time goes on, and we eventually get to these advanced years if we're lucky. That is.
mm. So how did you said you were a teenager when you worked it out. So what was it exactly that that's if you can remember, what was it exactly was it that made you realize, okay, this cannot be true? Before you answer the question, let me just uh we've got a few people here in chat already. We've got D, hey D, we've got L, and we've yeah, to L and D. D says, imagine how much more hostility there was 60 years ago. I can't wait to hear his story. Oh, I know.
I wouldn't say that when I was back in my twenties that there was a great deal of hostility, but certainly I think there was a degree of disapproval of anyone who said they were an atheist, and I did feel that. I think at that age you're much more concerned about what people think, and certainly at that age, when I had to fill in a form and it said religion, I was in Scotland at the time, so in the usual Church of Scotland, so I would put that down as my religion, even though I didn't believe it, because I felt it was necessary to conform. I wouldn't do that today, but there was that feeling.
So what was it that you realized? What was it that did it for you? The teenage Dawn that made you realize that no, this can't be true. The claims of Christianity. That's you grew up in the Christian church, right? Sorry, in
Yes,
Christianity, right?
yes, that's true. But all my family were Christians, but not tremendously active,
Hmm.
which perhaps helped. So that perhaps kept me having a little less exposure. But of course, we had Christianity taught to us at school, taught to us as fact, and so I more or less had Christian belief in my childhood. But some of my reading, finding out about some of the signs, the evolution, the astronomy, and many of the other scientific things that have undermined religion, um, and also reading a little bit about the history of religion and the history of the Bible. Um, that I suppose in my earlier years, I thought the Bible was something that had always been there and was absolutely certain. And people used phrases like the gospel truth to mean absolute truth.
Mm-mm-mm.
And of course, it couldn't be further from the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I used to believe that, and then finding out that the thing had a very human and origin and very political origin of different people taking different points of view. And when you read the history of it now, it really is most informative. There's a very good series of books written by an American called Bart D. Ehrman.
Batman, yes, yes.
Yeah, and they're quite an eye opener.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's a scholar, mostly of the New Testament.
Yes. He started off as a Christian, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He started off in as a priest, and
Mm-hmm.
um, another one who had a similar background was Dan Barker,
Oh yes, yes.
who has started
Freedom
off
from
as
religion.
an American evangelical preacher and gradually began, because he was studying it in great detail in theological college. I think that's what opened his eyes to it.
Right. Wow. So how have you lived uh, a life free of religion for 60 over 60 years? How have you done it?
I just live like anyone else. There's no difficulty about it, um, and it means I have my Sunday mornings free.
What do you do on your Sunday mornings then?
Well, I've sometimes thought that the very large scale decline of religion in this country has less to do with an intellectual study of it and
Mm.
more to do with the fact that the garden centre is more interesting.
You think they would rather go to a garden center than go to the religious center on a Sunday?
Well, I certainly would. I think,
Okay. I mean, what a lovely way to spend your time. I do tell people that one of the benefits of walking away from religion is you have more time to yourself, right? There's no uh there's no God who needs your time for whatever reason. Don, did you know, right? When I was growing up, we were taught that God uh we had to give God 10% of our time on a daily basis. So in one day you've got 24 hours. You had to give God 2 hours and 40 minutes. Not when you're asleep, your waking hours. So
Mm.
if you're awake 14 hours, two and a half of those, no, 2 and 40 minutes of those have to be in some form of worship to God. You're either praying, you're either thanking Him for something, you're reading your Bible, or, you have to constantly be in the presence of God. So, and then on Sunday, you then go and spend God knows how many hours in church on the Sunday. So, everything was all about this huge God character. God was such a big part of my growing up. Amazing
Well,
when I look back.
I congratulate you on being able to break free, because I didn't have that degree of indoctrination. Um, I did get sent along to Sunday school, and I even earned a certificate of Bible knowledge at one point. But eh, I would say my exposure was nothing like as severe as that.
Listen, I think you're very lucky, Don.
Yes, I'm really quite happy to have cured myself, because I remain very interested in religion and things of that sort, because it's fascinating that people can believe this stuff. And I find that the more reading I do, the more confirmed I become that the evidence really is conclusive, that it isn't true.
Oh, that the evidence is conclusive
I
that
think it
it
is.
isn't true. Right.
Yeah.
Listening to you say that now, I don't understand how the other the people on the other side can't see what you see, what I see, right? Do you think you can explain why that's the case? There's some people who are completely sold out to the idea that there has to be a God. I mean, come on, Don. Look at the trees.
Yes,
Look at the mountains. Look at the oceans. Look at the. Come on, Don. That's enough evidence to show you there is a creator.
yes, I remember a preacher saying to me once, when you look at the mountain, you just know there has to be a God. And my answer to that is no. When you look at the mountain, you just know there's a mountain,
Mm.
and that's as
It,
far as you can go. But
it,
at the same time, I remember chatting to a clergyman once, and he said, "Well, you atheists," he said, you must believe at the back of your mind that there really is a God."
hmm.
And my answer to that was, "Well, you Christians, I think at the back of your mind you must have a pretty good suspicion that there isn't one." And but it's absolutely true that uh, everyone has difficulty understanding the other person's point of view. That's
Mm.
normal, and we must look upon that with empathy.
Is that your dog?
Yes, and it also means that someone has come to the door.
You
Oh
you
dear.
you can go and get the door.
Can you hold for a moment?
100%. I will wait.
Okay.
So guys, I mean, just listening to um Don's story, 60 years, over 60 years. He has practically not had a God belief at all, and that fascinates me. I'm fascinated by people who have never been religious. How have you done it? I just automatically assumed that everyone had this God belief thing. So when I see people, and it's quite a lot. Well, I live in the UK, so you meet people that have never been religious a day in their life. It's not been something they never grew up religious, don't feel the need to adopt a religion, just So I'm that fascinates me. So Don, you know how you're fascinated with religion. I'm fascinated by people who have no religion, right? I'm new to the game. So I'm fascinated by the people who have been here longer than myself, right? Because how have you done it? I'm curious. What was it that did it for you? Right? I know I have my story, but I always want to know, what are people's stories? How did you work it out? How did you figure this out? Right? Don't tell me, Don. Tell me, you've got have you got a doctorate in theology?
No, I certainly haven't. I have a doctorate in engineering, but that's does little for theology.
Right.
Um, but yes, it's it's a funny thing. There's a great deal of evidence that persuades people that it's not true, and I think most of the people who lose their belief, they probably do it without knowing all of the evidence. They probably know just some of it, but some of it is enough.
Absolutely. And Don, I mean, did you see recently the decline in religion? Right. I remember when just before the census, there was that campaign telling people, if you are non-religious, to make sure that you fill it out on the form. Make sure to, because apparently that the way the questions are designed on the form, that in the past, people who have um, no religion just would go for, um, I think it's the way they ask the question is, do you have a religion? Or something. I can't remember. It's been a while now. I filled out the form, and that some people just would tick Church of England when they haven't got a religion at all. So there was that drive, because we want to know what how religion is looking like here in the UK. And when the results were published, I wasn't surprised, because
I
it's
think
hardly.
Church of England was the default option, wasn't it?
Yes.
And people put that down just to avoid discussion. But that's been disappearing, and I think the I think the very steep decline in the Church of England membership on surveys comes from people who have only been putting it down as a formality and don't see the point of doing that anymore.
So now the UK cannot call itself a Christian nation. Once upon a time, it could have been classified as a Christian nation, but right now you can't do that, right?
Well, Christianity has dropped below 50%
Yes.
for the first time, although it was considerably below that. The design of the questions is something that does affect the answers. The British Social Attitude Survey, which is a sampling survey, it's not a total census, but that came out with a very much higher proportion of people of no religion than the census does, even the most recent one. But then the questions are different.
Mm-hmm.
The census, I think, asks, what is your religion? But it does have an option to reply no religion. Um, but the British Social Attitude Survey, it says, do you have a religion? And then it says, if so, which?
Right.
So it's a different structure of question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you a question that I have been asked. Um, and the question is, where do you get your morals from? I've been told that as atheists have no basis for their morals, because the Christians have they've got the perfect foundation. They've got the perfect basis. They've got it all in that what they call the Bible, right? You can find the guide for life in the Bible. Listen, all you need to do is just open the book. You can find the how to live life, right? If you're struggling with anything, struggling with addiction, struggling uh, with illness, just open the Bible. You find everything you need. It's a one size fits all forms of problems,
Of
all forms of ailments, all forms of, just open the book.
course,
So,
that's not my experience
oh.
because certainly if any Christian claims the moral high ground, I think the answer is, well, we atheists, we don't need to burn people at the stake. We don't need to uh, have genocide and incest and all the other terrible things that God approves of in the Bible. Um, no, morality certainly doesn't come from the Bible, even for religious people, because I think all humans have a moral sense, and the moral sense has arisen because humanity has, throughout its entire history, lived in social groups, and evolution has given us our moral sense because people who are able to cooperate with their neighbours and get on well, they are going to reproduce better than people who can't do that. So we all have a moral sense that comes from our evolution as social animals.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we we live in the UK, and the UK have values. I think there's something called the British values. If I'm not mistaken, there's one. Gosh, I think there's about five or three of them. I don't remember what those values are, but I quickly check it out, right? But these are the values. These are the things that, if you choose to live in this country, this is how you're expected to conduct yourself. You're expected to behave. Why? Because over a long period of time, the people have worked out that these values will produce a society where people are tolerant of each other. It's been tried, it's been tested. There is no external force when it comes to these values. And so I find those values valuable for myself, right? And I'm prepared to adopt those as my moral guide. Well,
Yes,
that and also, like you said, we're social beings, right? I would not want to see any harm come to anyone at all, anyone who I come across, right? I wouldn't want any harm. I would seek to protect the well-being of myself and others, right? So
yeah.
these are the things. I don't need a moral book. I don't need a a god book telling me how to conduct myself in a society. Yeah?
I think that's right. I think even religious people, um, they don't go around thinking, oh, well, if I do that, I might go to hell, or if I do this, I'll go to heaven. They don't think
Mm,
that.
mm,
They
mm,
are propelled by their moral sense, just the same as the rest of us. So that's one thing. But I think values are also built up within any society, and people build up a code between themselves. And this means that different societies across the world may well have different value sets.
mhm,
And of course, it's not only with distance that values can be different, they can be different with time as well. I think um, when I was a teenager, the accepted values were perhaps different from what they are today. So values are very much a product of the society discussing within itself. and the instinct to accept those values and to have a moral sense is something that is innate, I think.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's a question I would like to ask you um, about the House of Lords. Why are there bishops seated in? Why do they get an automatic pass into the House of Lords? So, for those of you listening, right, the UK, okay, once upon a time, predominantly Church of England, the Anglican Church, and so as part of that, there's a provision in the constitution, in the government, the people who rule, right? So the houses are divided into, I think there's the House of Lords, there's the House of Commons, and well, all the houses. But bishops from the Church of England have an automatic seat in the House of Lords. And I've never really understood why that's the case. So what you're doing, you're bringing in. I think this is where people call for the separation of church and state. That cannot, you can't say that the church and state are separated, because now you have bishops sitting in the political affairs of the UK. So why is that the case? And is there is something gonna is are they trying to do something to? I,
No,
I think I think they shouldn't be there to begin with.
well, of course they shouldn't be there, but you can't really ask why because there is no good reason.
Oh,
Um, they shouldn't be there in any modern society. But Britain has always changed very slowly. And in fact, that is something that we derive great benefit from. So we don't have revolutions, and but we do have slow incremental change. The country is very different today from 100 years ago, and I'm sure there there are so many people now who believe that the bishop should not be there, and in fact that hereditary seats should not be there.
hmm,
That I think this must eventually go. Um, I think it's one of these things that just doesn't get to the top of the agenda because the House of Lords is has much less power than the House of Commons,
comments absolutely.
and in a sense, it's less important. But nevertheless, if we have a second chamber, then I think it should not be filled with people who are either religiously appointed or hereditary. I think it's been said that the only two major countries in the world which have clergy sitting as of right in the parliament is Britain and Iran.
Wow, wow. So there are only two countries in the world that have
I
clergy.
don't know if any other. Perhaps somebody will correct me.
They probably are, but I mean, there's not many, right? There's not many. But you would anyway. That's a conversation that I think really needs to be had, and I know that Atheism UK and what's he called, Humanist UK, they do campaigns, and I'm hoping that this would be one of such campaigns in the future, because, like you rightly said, um, these things take time. These things are not going to it's something it's been there longer than, I don't know how many hundreds of years. It's always been there. So um I doubt it will change in my lifetime. So yeah, but
I
then
would hope that it will change in your lifetime.
in
It's
my lifetime, you
I
think
don't
so?
think it's so far away.
Hmm. Okay. Right, guys, if any of you have any questions for Don, please put it in the chat. And I'm sure Don wouldn't mind answering uh, a couple of questions before he goes. But the next thing I wanted to ask you, Don, is this. talk of the afterlife. Um, One of the things and one of the reasons why I struggled with coming away from religion was because I believed in the afterlife. I believed in souls. I believed that when you died, there was a place that you go to. You either go to heaven or you go to hell. I have since deconstructed that and no longer believe. I now believe that when you die, that's it. It's finished, done, right? But what are your thoughts about the afterlife? Do you think there's any such
Well,
thing?
indeed, I grew up being told that if you're good, you will go to heaven and have it'll be wonderful forever. Um, but heaven and hell have been imagined by priests. The funny thing is that in hell they have imagined a lot of detail of the terrible experiences that you will have. But there's very little detail about how nice heaven will be, mainly because the priests don't like people having fun. Um, but so they don't seem to have imagined sitting playing harps on a cloud doesn't sound. It could start to get boring in eternity. But no, in reality, we realize now, although the people who wrote the Bible didn't realize it, that our mental activity is caused by several billion nerve cells in a very complex manner, which we don't fully understand. So it's sad. I wish I could have an afterlife, but wishing doesn't make it so.
Mm,
And I'm pretty sure that what will happen when I die, which and I'm quite late in life now,
mm,
but what will happen when I die is that there will be no experience at all. It will be rather, if you want to know what it's like, it will be like before we were born. But on the other hand, I'm reminded of Mark Twain, the American writer. He said, I'm not worrying about being dead. He said, I was dead for billions of years before I was born,
mm.
and it didn't cause me the slightest inconvenience.
Not at all, not at all. And if people say that, if anyone claims that there is a heaven and there's a hell, or these fancy places you're supposed to go when you die, of course you've got to provide some form of evidence, because when people die, they stay dead, right? They don't come back and start telling tales about what happened over there, right? Yes, people have near death experiences, but that doesn't mean that they died. It means that they had a near death experience. So if you're claiming that there's a hell and these things are going to happen, then you have to provide the evidence for these claims that because a lot of people have um, have been tricked into believing. Don, just recently I found out, I always believed that we as humans are made up of three parts. You're made up of the body, soul, and spirit. I only recently just realized that that may not be true. But I went all my life thinking that that was the case, because we were taught that. So when you die, the body remains here. Listen, I don't know which one it is. Is it the spirit or the soul? But it's the soul that then goes to the afterlife, but the physical bodies remains here. Now, the other one, I think it's the spirit. I don't know where that one goes. So I honestly don't know. But this is what we were taught. We were taught that there's three parts to a human. There's a body, the soul, and the spirit.
I don't think we had that concept. I think we were told it was body and soul.
Hmm.
But of course, the ancients uh, had no idea what it was that made people animated, what made them alive. And they assumed that there was something called a soul. But we now know that it's a complicated system of nerve cells and a functioning body.
Yeah, I mean, just and these are the things that you have to deconstruct, right? You were taught a different thing. I was taught a different thing. So where is the truth in the middle of all of this, right? In the middle of and that's why Christianity, for example, I say that Christianity is a mess. Is a whole mess. How can one religion have so many versions of one? How? How is it you you see two Christians, you cannot get ask the same question to two Christians, and you can never get the same answers from both of them. And they each read from the same book.
Of course, this is true now, but in the early days of Christianity, in the first century, the divergence of Christianity was much greater because it was essentially an oral tradition. It was only later in the century that the scriptures were written,
Hmm.
the scriptures of the New Testament, that is. But it divided into very different forms of Christianity, which showed that things were being made up because otherwise, how could it diverge? But many of these forms, which were far distant from what we know today, have been stamped out as heretics. So that the form of Christianity we know today, although in many different denominations, is much less varied than it was in the early days.
Absolutely. Now I've got just a couple of questions to ask you. Now, one of the reasons why I could never be a Christian ever again, so even if it was offered to me, even if the God of Christianity was proven to indeed exist, one of the things that to me will always be a problem is this idea that you cannot uh, be, if you identify as LGBTQ, God hates you for some reason. I don't understand that. How does God create you with said the body parts that you have and then polices you? Why is God so invested in what you do in your in the bedroom, in the wherever you engage in this in sexual activity? Why is he so invested? Why does God want to control people's pleasure? So I don't know if you do any ideas
Well,
why
it's
so much emphasis placed on pleasure? Why try to limit people?
well, priests like to control people, and obviously the invention of uh, heaven and hell was a motivational structure. But as far as anything that they call sin is concerned, um, some people wish to commit these sins and other people don't. So why didn't God create us without the instinct to wish to commit any of the sins?
Hmm.
The whole concept of sin is flawed.
It is. And why do you say that the whole concept of sin is flawed? Can you go deeper into that?
Well, it's more than social rules which people create as part of their moral code development. It's it's a process by which the priests control the more gullible people.
Hmm. And you keep saying priests, but Christianity has evolved a lot now. That they're not only priests, they're now preachers, they're now pastors, they're now listen all sorts of titles. all sorts of titles. They just come up with this stuff every single day. I tell people that if Jesus returns, even he himself he wouldn't recognize the religion that is they claim belongs to him. Even him himself, he would look and say, "Nah, that can't be mine. That can't be my religion. There's no way this belongs to me." Because
I'm sure he'd be astonished, wouldn't he?
he
The
would
fact that
be.
in the few hundred years after he died, he was transformed from a, a prominent orator and an agitator of the people into a god who was equal with God the Father, and who had existed from long before his birth, long before creation. And and then the Holy Ghost is another person who you don't hear much about, but then it turns out that all three of them are actually one person,
Oh
um,
goodness.
which Christians regard as a mystery, but I regard as a fudge, which was done to satisfy the monotheists at the same time as recognizing the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
It just doesn't make sense. The Trinity doctrine. In my own case, I I've had to deconstruct these beliefs because I once believed them. I once thought that it's possible for one entity to be three and three to be one. I once believed all of that, even though there was no evidence to believe it. But now, I mean, I look back and I sometimes, well, no longer angry at myself now, but I was angry. I was angry at the people who taught us this religion, angry at myself for not working this out sooner. I just, but I'm thankful that I'm now in a place where I I I'm resolved. I'm a lot more able to accept that I had no choice in the indoctrination, right? So, but I would like for more and more people to realize this, right? More and more people to um to know at least what they believe. Why do you believe what you believe, right? So I think my next question to you then is why why do you think people like you and me shouldn't just take a back seat and just not care? Why do you think we need to care and we need to be involved? Why do you think that?
People have described an association of atheists as being no more necessary than a club for people who do not collect stamps.
Mm,
Um, there would be no point in such a club. But religion is still playing such a big part in our history and in our national life that I think it does concern people that that things are being run based on a falsehood,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and that is concerning. But that said, I think many people who stop believing just take no further interest in it, and they don't. They don't wish to be evangelical about their disbelief, and I'm sure many, if not most, are in that category.
absolutely. uh but some of us like myself, I am evangelical about this. I if there's any such thing as an atheist evangelist, I think I would sign up. I would sign up for it
Yeah,
quick. I will go ahead and sign up. Right. But guys, this is Don Cameron, amazing gentleman. He has lived as an atheist for over 60 years. And, it fascinates me. We atheists, we're told that you cannot be good without God. You need God to somehow live your existence. But we have with us a gentleman who has somehow, lived a very fulfilling life. Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of your achievements, Don? Some of the things that you have got up to in
Some
your
of the
life?
what kind?
Some of the things that you have done, some of your achievements.
Oh well, I'm known for doing things with hot air balloons. So that has been my business for many decades. But it's a lot of fun. But that's a whole other department of my life.
You said you've got a doctorate in engineering, yes?
Yes, I've done. I studied originally aero engineering, which is was quite convenient for the uh, starting a company to make hot air balloons.
So you made hot air balloons in your lifetime.
Yes, we make them, and we're still making them.
How many times have you been on one?
Oh, I don't know, a few thousand.
Oh gosh, a few thousand. Oh my. I don't know if
That's
I can.
over probably nearly 50 years.
Oh my God. Wow. That's something I would love to do.
Oh, you should try it. Yes,
That's something I would love to do. Just go on a hot air balloon.
I won't say it's a
Amazing.
spiritual experience, but it's very interesting and aesthetic and exciting.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Mm-mm-mm. So you said it's like a spiritual experience.
Well, I don't think that's not an expression I really use, but nevertheless, I recommend it.
Okay. So for those of you who want to know what when Christians describe the feeling of the Holy Spirit, the feeling of, oh, there's just something. You feel something. Recommendation, get yourself on a hot air balloon and you will feel that thing, whatever they feel in the church. So tell me, just before we end this, your okay, so you haven't been religious at all. Your wife, was she ever religious?
No,
Your
she's not religious.
Okay, so
Um,
she wasn't ever.
well, she was brought up in a Christian household also, but I think almost drifted away from it. But again, the the contradictions are the thing that propel people, I think.
Fantastic. Have you got any books or anything? Do you have any literature we could read? Is there any? Did you write anything at all?
Um, I have done things. I've given talks and so on, but
Okay,
the I do have quite a collection of books, not by me but by other people
okay.
on these subjects.
Oh, nice, nice. So there's people saying hello, Mr. Cameron. That's Get Walk. Logan Fisher says, I like this guy. Logan Fisher says the Trinity is a monotheistic fudge. Yes, he agrees 100%. Uh, what the Beck says, there is a huge hot air balloon festival near me every year, and that's in Albuquerque. Albuquerque.
Albuquerque, yes, I know it well. I've been there several times.
Oh, have you? Oh,
It's the
nice.
biggest balloon festival in the world at Albuquerque
Mm.
in
Okay, so
New Mexico, USA.
yes. So that's what the NM stands for. There's the NM. So that must be
New
New
Mexico, yeah.
Mexico. Oh, fantastic. Okay. So Satan says, thanks for joining us today, Don. Right. So Dee's asking, do you have any book recommendations?
Any book? Well, there are so many books that one can read, but I think I would recommend at the moment the Lost Christianities
Hmm.
by Bart Ehrman.
The Lost Christianities. I don't think I've heard of that. So I'll
This
go
is
check it out myself.
talking about the early days of Christianity and how it diverged into so many different forms, most of which have been lost.
Hmm. Interesting. So Mr. Cameron, did you change the way you spoke to people after moving away from religion? For example, when talking about something exciting or profound.
Um, the funny thing is that
Before
even today,
before before you answer that question, Gerwalk, Mr. Cameron has been an atheist for over 60 years. So you want him to go back 60 years ago to go and find this information.
even today, if someone makes an impossible claim, I might be heard to say something like, "Oh, for God's sake," or, or if there's something unknown, you could say, "God knows." But it's very hard to get these things out of your language. But
Mm,
but it's it doesn't imply any belief in anything.
right. Hey, Shane the skeptic. And I will tell you, Mr. Cameron, that look, um, there's some people who think I'm crazy. There's some people who think, oh, the devil has got me. The devil has got me in his clutches. Some think I am an agent of the devil, and I'm being used by the devil to recruit people into the devil's kingdom. And so when I meet people like you, Dawn, it is inspiring because I know now it's not a phase. When you come away from these toxic religions, some people think, oh, it's just a phase. Never mind. She'll be back believing in Jesus in no time. No.
Hmm.
Mr. Don has lived his life, well, for the most part of his life without a God belief. And he's still going. He's still, just in fact, he's fascinated about people who are religious. How do so what exactly is what's the fascination with religion done? What is it exactly that makes you want to engage with this stuff? What makes you
Of course, God and the devil are invented characters, and it's very dangerous when people are accusing you of being an agent of the devil because
yes.
in times gone past, uh, they they were hunting people for witchcraft,
Yes.
and the most terrible crimes were committed because of these untrue beliefs. And but eventually, society went against it, and in fact, Parliament, I think it was in the early 1700s, they passed a law saying that it was illegal to accuse anyone of witchcraft because witchcraft was an impossible crime,
Mm.
which was an extremely wise thing to say.
Where did you say this law was passed? I need to
I would need to look it up. I'm sure Google would tell us. I think it might be 1725. I can't quite remember.
in the UK or
In the UK.
okay. I need to find that out because in Nigeria, for example, people are still being accused of witchcraft,
That's terrible.
and it's children particularly, women and children. They get the worst end of this thing, what people do when they accuse people of witchcraft. I think it's evil. I think it's evil. For something you've got no evidence for.
If they're saying you need religion to be moral, then how can they justify such an immoral thing as a belief in witchcraft?
Hmm.
Um, it's absolutely horrific what was done in the past and what may be even done in some places today.
Shady skeptic says atheists who speak Spanish say adios, which translated literally means to God, because everyone knows it basically means goodbye.
Mm.
It is dishonest when people pretend that because you use a common phrase like "Oh my God," you believe God exists. Oh yes, a lot of people do that, and I, for one, I've been told by Christians that I have no right to bear the name Esther. That I have to go and give up the name now that I'm no longer a Christian. So, I've been someone said to me, "Oh, when you give up your name, I'll take you seriously. But until then, nothing you say, I'm not listening. I'm not interested in anything you say." So, for some
Well, of
people,
course,
how dare you?
many names were taken from the Bible. Um, Everyone called Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John would have to change the name. So I don't think we can take names too seriously.
No.
But the phrases like "Oh my God" and so on, uh, or "God knows" or "For God's sake," some people, of course, substitute a swear word for God, and that doesn't imply that they think the swear word is a person living up in the sky.
Oh, well, this has been fun. Don, I've enjoyed talking to you, and hopefully we'll get you back to come and talk to us about, and if there's anything you uh in would like to talk about. Honestly, those are the kind of things I would like to talk just do on here. Have this platform for people that have been that have made their way out of religion. I want to know how are you living life? How are you living your everyday life? How are you navigating this thing what we call life as an atheist? It fascinates me because I didn't have this luxury. I didn't know what an atheist was until just a few years ago here. I didn't know that it was possible to not believe in God. So yes, I appreciate you coming, and well, we're gonna have to let you let you go. Does anyone have any final questions for Don before he goes? Let's see. Shane Skeptic. My name apparently means graced by God. You're graced by
Is
God.
that what shame means?
I don't know. I think that's
Mm.
is Shane. Is that what Shane means? Oh, graced by God. Esther is also Jewish. Apparently Esther is Persian. I've had someone say to me that Esther is actually Persian. So the ones who said to me, "Oh, now you're no longer a Christian. You've got to give up your name." Well, sadly, they don't. They don't know. They don't know that the name Esther is not nothing to do with Christianity. Absolutely not.
It's an Old Testament name.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. It is.
Anyhow, it's been a very great pleasure talking to you this
Yes.
evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, we'll hopefully have you back again very soon. Well, guys, you all do not forget to hit the thumbs up. Um, you all be good. Enjoy your Saturday. I don't know what you all are getting up to today, but make sure to enjoy. I might come back later on because I'm usually not live at this time, but I might come back later on. So watch this space. So, guys, you all Take care, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Okay.
Do you have a moment? And this very second, I know you feel the beat. Do you feel the rhythm all the way? Can you see the vision? Everything in this world will be okay. Can we be together all the way? I know you feel this movement right here. You just be vibing, reaching for something